All right, folks, welcome to another Buckmaster's Big Buck Blueprint. We got another big one down, and it's in Ohio. Miss Katie Wainscott is with us. Katie, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Super excited.
This is going to be awesome, and this whole podcast is brought to you by Rocky Boots, and we're excited to have them on as one of our sponsors of our podcast. So talk to me a little bit. Ohio. Tell me a little bit about your hunting experience, who got you started, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so my husband and I, so he got me into hunting. We live on 10-acre horse farm that our 10 acres we bought off of our neighbors who had 120, now 110, and they are absolutely amazing and let us use their 110. So being on the property now for going on 5 years, when we moved on, pretty much right away, and we saw the deer down here are incredible.
Oh, yeah.
You look left and right, you can see deer almost all day long, year round. So pretty soon we started working on food plots, clearing out trails, learning where their bed spots were. During rut, it's insane down here. The amount of rubs and scratches. You can't walk 20 feet in the woods without seeing, rut activity. Mm-hmm. So we had started putting in, like I said, food plots. My husband does a lot of bush hogging through the back of the fields to keep areas long, but keep some cut.
So is this particular property, Katie, 110 acres that y'all are hunting? Is that right? You live on 10 acres and you're leasing, or your neighbor lets you hunt on 110 acres?
Yep, neighbor lets us. Again, they're incredible. My husband bush hogs fields for them, and we keep the trail so that when they're out here, they can zip their razors around and have fun. And
I got
and it's the land down here is as diverse of Ohio as you get. We've got a river on one side, open sort of pastures and fields, then woods, then hills. It's the full diversity of Ohio. So it's perfect down here for the deer, the turkey, all wildlife thrives down here.
Well, there's been a lot of record book deer come out of Ohio, I promise you that. Y'all are you're in God's given place for whitetail deer, I can tell you that. So, well, talk to me a little bit about your husband. He got you started hunting. How long has he been hunting, and who got him going before he got you going?
So he started kind of casually growing up, never really deeply into it. He was, but once we moved here, he jumped in up both feet forward. So the 5 years he has been gung-ho, and this is some of his deadheads that we found also. Yep, that was his first mounted one, the first guy up there that he got a couple years ago. So he really was the one to get me into it, and I was kind of on the sidelines mostly. Mm-hmm. I was helping with the process, but it was always I'm going to get out this year, but my full-time sport is eventing. So I do an equestrian sport, kind of like triathlon with a horse.
Oh, really?
And it's super intensive, and it's almost year-round. So I get a couple weeks break, and it's just during deer season. So this year is actually my first ever year finally out hunting. And so it was this year it's happening. We're going out, we're doing it. And it got a little bit expedited with finding my buck this year. So this was the first official year, and I was pretty spoiled with this being my first year out hunting and my first ever deer.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So you have shotgun up there, and you have bow and arrow and crossbow. Is that right? You don't have rifle season up there, right?
No, I believe we do have rifle. My husband and I don't do any gun season. But I'm pretty sure there is rifle.
So y'all do bow and crossbow, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I got you. Okay, well that's good. What time of year is the bow? When does it come in?
Yeah, September through February.
Wow.
Pretty wide bow season, and it might be off a little bit through there. That typically my husband, November's our pretty lucky season.
Okay.
That's when we've gotten ours, and maybe my husband's one of his has been a little bit earlier in September, but kind of that late fall has been our successful time.
All right, on that 110 acres that y'all are kind of grooming for whitetails, what's the combination between woods, thickets, and just say open pasture? I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea how the land lays out,
Yeah.
and then how your husband's come in and tried to manage it and put food plots and stuff in. And then what are in your food
Yeah.
plots? What are you planting?
So if you kind of imagine the property, there's a river that runs along, that's kind of, you consider that kind of the boundary line. And then through that, kind of the edge is wooded, and then it opens up into field, and then it shoots up a hill where there's big, steep ups and downs, and then that's all wooded. So the majority, it's 3/4 wooded.
Okay, out of the 110 acres. I got you.
Yeah, yep. And then he did a turnip mix last year that the deer just kind of laughed at. He worked really hard in that section, and I mean, they were giant, and the deer they weren't thoroughly impressed with that. So he's now got an alfalfa mix that it was trying out, and we just got in a clover mix that we're going to try out as well. I mean, the land itself is so darn good as it is, but we're trying to figure out what the deer that we put in like best. And right now we're still just kind of playing with the trail cams. Again, the back there, that turnip mix, they were definitely back there, but not as much activity as we were hoping for.
I got you. So your husband puts out a lot of trail cameras then, right?
Yeah, we have about, I don't know, we've got about 4 that we try to run, and we keep them up year round just to see what's out there between the coyotes and the turkeys and deer, and sometimes seeing where our dogs are getting into trouble back there. So yeah, we like to see what's going on. We mixed it up through the different terrain. So we've got some that's in a more wooded section. We've got one that's over a food plot. We do corn. We don't hunt over corn, but we like to have one that's by a corn stand that we can see what's coming through there. So we try to have a variety, one by the river, to see kind of what's in and out. We've got we know the land so well out here. We know their bedding spots. I mean, through just stomping around in the woods looking for sheds and just being out here. We know their little highway system. We call it Deer Highway back there.
Sure.
So we know all of their trails. We know where they like to come through over the river. They're easy spots that they can cross the river and come up into the property. So we just have a really great layout and understanding of the deer behavior here, what our resident herds are. We've got 6 group of girls. I mean, I wake up every morning and I look out my window, and those 6 girls are out grazing in the pasture with my horses.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. Then you just kind of, that's amazing, because a lot of folks, they might have a big piece of property. You're dealing with 110 acres. And that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting to be able to lay it out that way and kind of know what's going on. So,
we put feed on it. Especially I'm out with the dogs, in between riding my horseback there. I have feed on the property pretty much every day. So it's kind of nice also. I and my husband, before I then started hunting, I was my husband's morning intel, because I work a 12 to 8 work shift. So in that morning block, I could go out and see, all right, the doe are over there, or I can call during rut. There was a big old 8-point that just ran across in front of me over here. So we work as a team together to figure out sort of what's going on and where the deer are, and a pretty good flow and understanding of what's happening on the property.
Well, it sounds like you're kind of bit, with the deer bug. Okay.
And especially, I mean, having the first season of hunting in, I just loved the land and loved the deer and the wildlife out here, that I knew I wanted to start. But it's so special out here. And after getting that buck, I 100% understand that feeling of buck fever, and that adrenaline rush was oh my gosh, if you could bottle that up, you'd sell it for millions.
All right, before we get into your story, folks, our podcast is also brought to you by our good folks from Easton. If you need some arrows or bolts, go to your local dealer and check them out. All right, let's get in, Katie, to this particular season. And we're getting ready to hunt this particular deer. Lay out the story and help me and the audience understand from day one till the deer hit the ground and till deer being scored. Let us have it.
All right. So it's a fun story because we had not seen him. This buck was not on any trail cams. I never saw him out. He was a total surprise. There was November 5th. It was a Tuesday. I was out riding my horse. It was my final week before my last competition of the year. So I was focused in on riding. I had the weekend was coming up. I was having to travel down to Tennessee. So I'm out riding. I always do some conditioning walk before a ride. So I'm out riding the horse through the fields, which funny enough, my husband's always like, don't ride in the fields. You're going to scare away the deer. Well, jokes ended up being on him.
Yeah.
I was riding out down the field and my dogs stopped and kind of perked up. And I looked over and an 8-point had jumped up. There's a bedding spot down kind of by the river there where there's real tall grasses. And it's by November, the grasses are totally dead and it is a perfect camouflage. So it's kind of that late morning bed spot for them. But I'd never seen bucks down there. It's always been just some does. So I stop, 8-point jumps off. I watch for a bit, watch him go. And then to the right, something catches my eye a little bit. And I'm looking and I'm on the horse and I see there's a big buck. I can't tell at that point how big he is. So I try to get out my phone. I take a couple pictures. I'm like, okay, I need to get away from that zone and let him be. He never jumped up. He stayed put. So I sent pictures off to my husband, and my husband had already harvested a deer at that point.
Okay.
And so, of course, sending him a picture of what appeared to be a pretty big buck was painful to him. But again, his buck was a good one this year.
So how far was the buck when you took a picture from your horse?
Oh, 20 yards.
Yeah.
Again, in my spottings of him, I'm not a good aim with a football, but I could have thrown a football and hit him.
Wow. So he just hung tight while the other buck jumped up, and he wasn't afraid of a horse. He was just just another animal in the woods with him.
Yeah, just another animal. And even the dogs, I mean, I'm sure he saw them. He just sat there quiet and chill, where the 8-point was very flighty. He was gone.
Wow.
And he gave away his location.
Yeah.
So next day, Wednesday, I avoided that spot. Thursday, I went back down, rode past that area, still on the horse, same routine. Rode past that spot, didn't see him. I thought, oh, well, that's really unfortunate that he is gone. My husband had moved a trail cam at that point. We didn't see him. So I made kind of the loop around a little bit past that point. And as I'm coming back, it's still that similar terrain, the tall, dead grasses. I see movement. There goes the 8-point again. Gave away their location. I'm on the horse, and I look over, and there he is, just bed down. I mean, straight eye contact at us. Again, 15 yards, maybe. Could have thrown anything and whacked him with it. And he just sat there, calm and cool, and just stared at us. And at that point, that's when I got my phone out and got a ton of pictures.
Really?
He just sat there, and my dogs were around. I'm recalling the dogs back to get them away from him.
Unreal.
But the horse is staring at him. I'm staring at him. I probably got 10 pictures of him, and he never budged. He just sat there confidently and looked at me. So rode away, instantly called my husband. I'm like, this is it. This is the deer. I've got to go for him.
Yeah.
And I had my apprentice license this year, knowing that I wanted my husband to come with me for the first time. So I call him, and it was this is it. And we have got to try to get him. So that evening, again, I work a late shift, so I couldn't hunt that Thursday evening. That gave him time to move there's a big sycamore tree that looks over that pasture down there. So he threw up a tree stand. We went out then Friday morning, and of course, like I said, I had the horse show that I had to get to down in Tennessee, so we were working on a timestamp. So we went out Friday morning.
Now, is this a ladder stand that y'all both were sitting in?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so it's a double ladder stand he put up.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And so Joe had come in, 8-point came in, and the big guy never did. And so we sat for a couple hours longer, and just then no luck. And at that point, I was this close to scratching my horse show and saying heck with it, but it was my last one of the year. I was a couple months pregnant, so the later show season wasn't going to happen. So I need to go to this darn show. So I reluctantly drove down Tennessee, competed, Sunday morning, finished up my ride and booked it home.
Mm-hmm.
So got home Sunday at like 4:30ish. I come up the driveway. I'm pulling the horse trailer, come up the driveway. There's my husband standing in the driveway, and he's got binoculars. So I'm rolling down the window, and I stick my head out. And is he down there? And he's like, shut up. He's down there. So he's down in the spot that we had seen him. He was locked down with the doe and the 8-point.
Oh, okay.
So I know. And so here's this scene happening right there. Husband's there. I've got the darn truck and trailer. So we start trying to as quietly and easily scramble because the deer would be able to see us. I mean, he needed binoculars for a good view, but it's where I shot the deer I could see from my kitchen window. So he's running in the house to get all of our gear.
And you're hunting with a crossbow, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a crossbow.
I got you.
That he says I'm not allowed to use anymore. So it'll be a compound bow moving forward. Yeah, he says I'm not allowed to, so that's fair. So he's scrambling to get gear. I'm trying to, as quietly and efficiently, I got to unload the horse off the trailer, get his boots off of his legs, chuck him out in the field. So, it's a little bit of a process. So we're trying to scramble and do it as quickly but quietly as possible. So we get it done, and thank God he's still there. That the doe and the 8-point had left by that point, but he was down there, my big guy. So we come up with our strategy and with our plan of what we're going to do. That in that section, there's a kind of open field that we bush hog. Then a tree, kind of not even a tree line, just a brushy edge line, kind of where that big sycamore is also. And then back to where I spotted them, and then river. So our plan was we were going to, deer's here, we're going to ground stalk them to the side and come in behind, because thank God, again, also the wind was in our favor. So we were downwind of him. So our plan came to fruition.
So y'all are stalking this big buck, not in a tree stand.
Nope, we ground stalked him.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. So we were hunkered low, walking along the edge of that field, then made kind of the right hand turn to where he was here. And at that point, he had kind of worked up into that brushy edge and then had bed down. So when he went down, we were able to cover better ground then. And knowing the 2 times that I've seen him, knowing his behavior, I mean, in the 2 times, so not perfectly knowing his behavior, but having a pretty good understanding that he is a calm, confident deer, that he's not super flighty like the 8-point was, that we're going to be able to get close to him. And we were. So ground stalked him along the edge, and about 30 yards he saw us. And he didn't get up right away. He saw us and looked for a bit. And then he stood up. And in that time, then I kind of broke away from my husband and started eking up a bit closer and got probably 20, 25 yards from him.
Really?
And at that point, he had stood up and he quartered to me and just gave me a perfect opportunity. So took the shot, and it was an instant, that thump. He jumped and kicked out, and just exactly what you want to see in that moment there. So he jumped, kicked out, came out of the brush, went back in, and the blood was spewing out of him. So at that point, it was oh my gosh, I knew I had gotten him. I knew I had landed a vital shot, and that the big old guy he was going down.
How about that? I mean, just think about this. I mean, you got millions of hunters out there. Here's a young lady that's never been deer hunting. This is her first time to go deer hunting. is an equestrian star. And if it wouldn't have been for your horse and your dogs, you'd have never found this deer, right?
Yeah, the things that my husband always yells at me for you're gonna spook the deer away because of the horses and the dogs. It was the horses and the dogs what found the deer. So if it weren't for them, because again, we had no idea he existed. We didn't see him anywhere. So if I hadn't been up on the top of the horse at a higher point,
right,
and the dogs hadn't heard the initial, and I have to thank the 8-point who my buck wouldn't thank for him. I mean, he gave away their location.
Yeah.
So if it weren't for the horses, I wouldn't have had him.
Then people don't need trail cameras. They just need to get horses and dogs and ride around and spot their deer and then go spot and stalk them. They don't need tree stands. They don't need anything. And you just shot
equipment, nothing.
You just shot a record.
All the work in.
Yeah, you just shot a record class deer.
Yeah, and it truly though, I think if it weren't for the environment down here again, and that the work that we've put in, and just the natural resources that are down here though, and again, my husband gets the most credit for putting all the work into. He's the one out there on the rusty old tractor that I'm not getting on, bush hogging and keeping the areas pristine. I mean, it was so the work was there, but also it was luck. It was lucky that I was on the horse at that time, because otherwise someone else would have gotten that deer this year.
It was meant to be, my dear. That's all I can say. And for you to shoot that quality of deer on your first deer, you might just have to go back to horse riding full time, because I don't know if you can ever shoot a deer bigger than that. But hey, I might be doing this with you next year. Who knows?
I know. My husband said if I have the nerve to shoot a big buck again that he doesn't get, that he's going to divorce me. So
I hear you.
We'll see.
All right. So Ed Waits, one of our Buckmaster scorers, scored the deer. What did the deer score?
198 and 3/5.
Wow.
3/8.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. You shoot a 200-inch deer as your first deer, and you stalked him at 25 yards. I don't know if we can tell that story again. That's unbelievable.
I mean, it almost doesn't sound like it was real, but it was. It was all the little chances of everything just ended up being perfect.
That's awesome.
It really did.
Well, Katie, congratulations to you and your husband, and good luck on your equestrian. You know, we got a pretty good equestrian program here at Auburn University. That's where I went. They've won a lot of national championships there. Coach Williams is a good friend of mine. So, but again, congratulations, and again, tell your husband he better get a horse and a dog, or otherwise he's not going to find a deer. Sounds like you got to.
I know. We'll get on it.
You got the scoop. Well, thanks for being on today's podcast. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
All right, folks, that does it for another Buckmasters Big Buck Blueprint. If this is first time in, push the subscribe button. Tell all your buddies the Buckmasters are on social media. We'll see you next time right here on the Buckmasters Big Buck Blueprint.